Hi, I'm Nicolas, and I'm going to talk about a project to bring React Native to web. In particular, I'm going to focus on a few web-specific things, styling and accessibility. So I work at Twitter on the mobile web team, and although we're a small team, there are lots of teams at Twitter building web UIs, and a lot of us are using React as well. So you might wonder, why am I interested in bringing React Native to web when React Native is kind of bringing a bunch of what's good about web development to native? But in short, I think the developer experience and the user experience that results from React Native is better than what you get with DOM primitives. And some of those DOM primitives are not really rich enough to be your go-to building blocks for apps. And in particular, there are issues with styling and code sharing when it comes to making sure that your components are styled when you're pulling things in from outside of your app. And so on web, you end up with either using class name, which has its problems because a string can have any number of styles attached to it, so you kind of lose control of styling. And it also requires you to end up using things like loaders or build tools or higher order components. So the current status of the project is that most of it's working on web. Some parts are in progress or slightly behind React Native because the project's moving very quickly. Some pieces are missing, notably the APIs that had undergone a lot of churn, like Navigator. And some parts, like the animated library, are just copy-paste straight out of React Native. But this thing works, and you can kind of build web apps with this thing. Most of the APIs are compatible with React Native. And in fact, it can run some of the React Native examples straight out of the React Native repo. So this is tic-tac-toe, like unmodified, running on mobile web. And this uses like 1.5K of gzipped CSS. This is the 2048 game, also straight out of React Native's repo, also running on mobile web. This is about 1.4K of CSS gzipped. And for Hack Week at Twitter, I took the mobile app that we're building with React and replaced all of our CSS modules, Webpack-based CSS, with React Native Web. And that took our CSS from 12K down to 2.5K. So those CSS bundles of like 1.5K and 2.5K are pretty small. But what's interesting is how little extra CSS is needed to go from styling a one-file tic-tac-toe game to styling our entire mobile app's 150 UI components. And the reason for this is because of how StyleSheet has been implemented to work on web. So although the API is compatible with React Native, and there's a couple of extensions to support some web-specific features, it ends up generating HTML and CSS that looks a bit like this. So what it does is it takes it takes in your style objects and converts each of those declarations into unique property value pairs. And then it takes those pairs and creates a unique CSS rule for each of them. And then the class that you get from it. So it completely avoids styling collisions and results in your CSS only growing when you create new unique property value pairs rather than just when you add more CSS to your components. So the style sheet itself kind of provides this automatic atomic CSS. You write CSS styles just like you would in React Native, and behind the scenes it optimizes it into this kind of minimal CSS footprint. It also has no build step requirements, so it just kind of works as you're working in something like JS bin or whatever. And it supports code splitting, so if you're asynchronously loading bundles in large applications like we do. And it supports universal rendering. So you can render this on the server with an extension I made to AppRegistry, which is pre-render application. That returns a string of HTML and a string of your styles. And those styles are only the styles that you need to render the HTML that it sends back. So it's kind of like automatic, what's the word? Slimming down of your CSS to be exactly what you need to render the HTML in your app. In terms of accessibility, it maps some of the default accessibility props available in React Native to web equivalents, all these ARIA properties, and adds accessibility role, which maps to ARIA roles. And the main reason for this is because behind the scenes, we can use these roles and map them to DOM primitives that encapsulate accessibility features that we don't have access to otherwise. So it's really important for us to have accessible web apps. And so working with React Native, we wanted to make sure that the web equivalent was also accessible from the beginning. So in summary, it has this like novel CSS and JavaScript strategy that kind of results in this platform-agnostic, build-agnostic style API. And that really facilitates code sharing between teams because we don't have to worry about having common build tools to work with styles. and even potentially across platforms. So there's a few React Native modules that I pulled in, and they just run, like they just work on web because they don't use like Navigator and those kind of APIs. It also has some built-in web accessibility and support for universal rendering. So if you're interested in this, help me out. This is the GitHub link, and the examples that I showed are available on CodePen. Some of this, because there's so much of it that's copy-pasted from React Native, I feel like it might be worth moving into the main repo at some point if it seems like a good idea. And that's it. Thank you.